well, but Catherine School is not.
They're struggling with premises
It's
at the
not
moment.
opening still. I don't think. No, it's not opening this year, and I'm not sure what will happen next year with Catherine's. Ours, I'm hoping, will open on time, which is September 2013. Fingers crossed. But ours is a very large school for 1,500 children.
Wow.
We're having a primary school, a secondary school, and a sixth form.
Do you have premises lined up?
We've got various places in mind.
Oh, yes,
I'm not going to
When
say.
I went to that meeting last time, you were still kind of like, no, I'm keeping it to myself.
No, I'm sorry.
Like one day you're just going to see this massive score just appear out of nowhere.
You have to keep it to yourself.
Why?
We had to keep
Very
our
recent.
site to ourselves until about a month ago. We had to keep using the word preferred site because you don't want to tread on the toes of the people selling it. In our case, it was sold by the London Borough of Enfield, and you have to be very careful and you have to do what they ask you, because if you start declaring where it's going to be without actually finalising things, it could cause problems.
Well, you could get gazumped.
Yes, but we're at liberty now to say that we are going to have a temporary base and subject to planning permission, a newly built school on a piece of land in Enfield.
Wow.
Yes,
So
we're very
I'm with
happy.
the my art school of excellence. We're based in Brent, and we've had our application turned down. But we had a really brilliant curriculum kind of lined up because we wanted a very high cultural influence on the curriculum.
Yeah.
We wanted to start the day with Tai Chi and meditation, and throughout the lessons we wanted to have light African drums in the background because we learn with rhythm.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the official school time would probably end about 4 o'clock, and then we'd have after school services available up until 7 o'clock.
So what was the reasons they said that it wasn't going to go through this time?
I mean, with the finance guy, he brought in the application, and they said, look, the finance package wasn't quite correct. So, well, we said we filled in your template that you gave us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, the curriculum template wasn't quite well. We filled in your template that you gave us. So it seems like they didn't actually read it from the feedback that we got. Because everything he said we didn't do was in their template that they sent us.
It's interesting because when you think about, especially within China, there is that the schools run that way. They have particular exercises they do in the morning. And I always think, well, of course, healthy body, healthy mind. If you've got that balance, then of course you're going to be open, you're not going to be tired, you're going to be able to learn. So
But it's after lunch is when you need to do more activity, because after lunch is when the children get tired. After eating, the food generates the energy and you get tired. So that's schools that haven't got to grip with that right now, because after lunch, children get a bit weary, get a bit tired, because they're digesting the food. That's the best time to have something more interactive.
But that was just part of the curriculum. So did they have any other issues with any other part, because it was specifically aimed at an African or African Caribbean influence?
We said there would be an African influence in the curriculum.
Yeah.
It's not particularly aimed at African children, because we are all entitled to learn different cultures.
Free schools also have to be open to everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They have to be, but you can offer a sort of innovative curriculum such as the one that you are offering.
Because we're not going to do Black History Studies.
Yeah.
We've got Black History Studies within the framework.
Yeah,
So how can you learn about science without mentioning Imhotep? Things like that. Talk about history. It's not just about slavery and Martin Luther King and the civil rights.
But see, this is something I don't understand. Also, it's like even again working for a publisher, it's almost like recently the schools wanted to get rid of everything that's African American, and to me that really offended me, because even working with a publisher where we have people African American, to me, if it's a great story and it helps a young person, then they should have that within the material. Even though at the same time you should have people who are here in the country that they're being brought up in.
Yes.
But what I found really kind of odd is the fact that so you're going to get rid of all these stories that could inspire, that could actually make a difference, because it's like, one person might, look at a painting and say, oh, I don't really like that. Then another person might say, it's the most fantastic thing I've ever seen in my life. And I think that's what if you give the choice, then people can pick what's relevant to them. But when there's this exclusion of the rest of the world...
When there's no choice.
But also,
take away the choice.
Yeah, and it's almost like you're restricting all these other aspects of the world, so that then you're choosing which stories
Yeah, it's like saying, I don't like it, so nobody else is allowed to like it.
Yeah, and I don't understand
That's
that. I don't really understand that.
I feel it's important that children have someone they can relate to as well.
Exactly.
I remember a book that my sister bought for my children. It's about black scientists
Yeah.
as well, which my children absolutely.
Was that the Black Scientist Inventors?
Yes.
Oh,
that's right.
that's my
That's
Michael's.
one of the best publications.
Okay. My children absolutely love that book. I really do. I really do.
Yeah.
And I was really pleased my sister did that.
And it
Well done, Mike.
encourages black children to get involved in science.
Yeah.
It does.
Because when you don't see yourself in things that you're learning, you're seeing it, but you're not taking it in because you don't feel as though you're involved. You're like, where am I in this picture?
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of black children do get kind of frustrated with it. They don't necessarily understand why,
Yeah.
but somewhere along they get frustrated with the system. It gets to the point where we're thinking, what's it got to do with me? I'm learning all this stuff, or what's it got to do? Because it was like my daughter's friend. She hasn't had much of a cultural upbringing, but she's learned all these things in history about the kings and queens and all this kind of. And she's asked the question out of the blue. She asked the teacher, "Where am I in this picture? I can't see myself in this." And she just felt that.
So what was the teacher's reply?
What was the teacher's reply, Kenny?
Who's the girl?
Hiba.
Oh, Hiba. I think that's just part of the curriculum or something like that. I can't do nothing. I'm
So
just
the
a
teacher's
teacher.
just following orders.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand because you've got so much to go through as a teacher and you've got to kind of stick to a plan. But when you've got somebody asking a really important question that needs to be answered, there should be the answer.
Yes.
Because when that reply of, oh, well, it's just the curriculum, that's in that one sentence you've just said, oh, well, your question's not important, it's not relevant, and actually your presence is not required in this particular, but that never gets taught. And I think to me that's, how can you not, when there's a particular child with a particular culture sitting there asking a question about themselves?
It's a mindset really. I mean, it depends on your own upbringing and your culture. That's why I don't really want to blame because if you're brought up in a certain culture, you're not going to instinctively think, oh, how am I going to meet the needs of this Turkish boy or this Muslim child or this black child?
Of course,
You're not going to instinctively think that. But what you can do is use what the national curriculum says. You see, people don't realise what's actually in the national curriculum.
That's true,
There are elements called adapting the unit, but we don't tend to click it. When you click that, you will see a whole host of things that you can incorporate within the national curriculum. Just to give you an example, if you're looking at Tudors, Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn, I might chop the heads off, we need to remember that there was a trumpeter in the court of Henry VIII who was black. And there's a picture and evidence of this person. And you will find out that being a musician in his court was a very good job. And there's actually evidence of the salary that he got. And so even just touching on that alone says, I've considered something else here, that Tudor England wasn't just Caucasian. It consisted of people that came from all over the world.
But do you see what's interesting, what you just said? I work with people and I remember I went to one session only a couple of years ago and there was a white Australian teacher and he was sticking to the curriculum, and this must have been around 2007. And he was given on the curriculum, you have to ask the question, this is the way of including Black history or whatever you want to call it. And so the question was on the curriculum, why is Wilberforce the greatest abolitionist? So to me, if you know anything about psychology, if you know anything about, if you ask a particular question, it's already being guided. So whether it's on the curriculum or not, it's already been guided. So what he had to do, even being a white Australian teacher, he said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to still ask the question, but I'm going to say, okay, who is the greatest abolitionist? So what he did, he got his students to learn about Clarkson, he got the students to learn about Wilberforce, but he also to go through Equiano.
Yes.
So the students went off, did their research, went through everything, and then he had a discussion about it once they did their research. So then, the young people themselves said, actually, not because I would prefer the answer to be, but actually, Equiano was probably the greatest abolitionist. Why? Because of the challenges that he had to go through, because of the great things that he managed to do within the time period that he was living in. But if that had not been, and that was from a white Australian teacher, but if he had not been more aware, if he had not been more inclusive, he could have just blatantly gone with that question, why is Wilberforce the greatest abolitionist? Which, me personally, I don't obviously believe, but the children could have gone away, or the young people could have gone away, thinking that if they had not had a teacher that had been able to say, okay, let me just, you know, as they say, unpack these things and say, how am I going to read this? So the children get the most amount of information, are able then to digest it and debate and discuss what all these aspects are, so that I know about these three people, the context of the time, and then go away, actually I've learned something. But if it wasn't for him, that could have been a completely different situation.
Yes.
So you're right, I do understand completely that there's room in the curriculum, and actually I remember somebody saying to me, there's always been room in the curriculum.
Oh, it's
There's
always
always
been,
been room to make it culturally and globally inclusive. Yes, teachers are very, very pressured with time. In primary school, with modern foreign languages, which they're now dropping, that's Spanish, French and whatnot, they're dropping that now. But with that, I think there were 13, even stroke 14, if you put a bit of citizenship in there, subjects to teach. And some schools require that to be covered the whole week. There's an enormous amount of pressure on teachers to do that well. Some subjects get sidelined, and others, it's easier just to go with the scheme of work that's put there before you, which tends to be Eurocentric. So you just go with it. But I challenge that now, and I see my role in the school to be one of a cultural and even a spiritual role model there, because it is an inclusive school with a distinct Christian ethos, but a cultural role model, and where I can see ways that we can make it a bit more relevant, a bit more engaging, then I will suggest it and even present resources.
So that's great though, because the fact that you're open to it, and you're in a free school system where you're able to actually say, actually I haven't tried this before, but I'm going to try it.
Yes.
And I think
That's one of the things we really love about that opportunity to do something different. Because we've got to remember, not all children learn the same way as well.
Exactly.
You know, you're able to try different methods of teaching, have different people teaching different children based on how you feel a particular child might best learn. With a sort of maths, for example, children learn in different ways with maths. One size does not fit all, and that's the greatest challenge to every school.
Yes.
And with free schools, it allows us to do something about that and try doing things in different ways. And you know, that's just one of the freedoms. There's so many more, and Karen's doing a fantastic job of covering all these different aspects. I'm going to try and double up on what Karen's already said. You know, but there's just so much that you can do in terms of exploring the best way to do this and that, exploring teaching subjects different ways. You mentioned with this teacher, this particular teacher, the way he went about things.
It's exciting time.
Teaching something different, full stop. Karen mentioned about the languages. We're going to keep the languages. We're very, very keen on languages. Languages is one of our things, and we want to teach Chinese as well.
Yeah, to go and learn Chinese.
But see, that to me,
You've got to go with the way of the world.
But see, to me, again, it's like, why would you not want to learn languages? Because I remember having a
In this day
conversation.
and age.
Yeah, because I remember somebody saying to me, you know, if you learn another person's language, you have to learn their way of speaking, obviously, but you see the world from their perspective because you're learning through their language. And so, by not learning another person's language, it's not like it's one size fits all, as people say. It's, you can't just say, okay, you all have to speak this language. I mean, I have to say I do only speak English, but I think that's the reason. I think I'm so kind of. I really want you should be able to have another language.
What we've got to remember is English is not the predominant language in the world anymore. That's Spanish. So teaching the children Spanish is important. Teaching them Chinese. The way of the world financially is going towards the Middle East. You know, teach them languages that will allow them to integrate.
Spanish is a good one.
Spanish at primary school,
Mandarin,
and then maybe pick up Mandarin later on, as it's a much more difficult language to learn. But certainly from a young age at primary, my son learns Spanish. You know, from the age of 5 he's been learning Spanish, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. He's doing some French as well, which is nice. You know, we're part of Europe. You know, so
at the primary level.
Well, part of the.
They haven't told us that yet.
At the primary level, modern foreign languages is not just about teaching the language, but learning about the culture connected to the language as well, and that's why I like it. But also,
I think that's Michael Gove on the phone.
I had the privilege of learning French from a very young age, you know, and that was back in the early 70s, and I just loved it. I loved languages, and I had the opportunity to learn Latin as well. And I think that these opportunities should still be there. If you think about the first free school, West London Free School, and they're basing their curriculum on the classics, and saying that and saying that every child will learn Latin, and if that is what the parents want for their children, then it's out there now.
Because we wanted to bring Latin into the Arts School of Excellence in West London, purely based on because when children apply to go to university, Latin is one of the requirements that they actually look for. Because as part of the ethos in what we wanted to teach, we actually wanted to be part of training children to actually get into university. It's part of the training because they, you know, to get to university, they ask, what musical instrument do you play? At the interview, they ask, do you speak Latin? What musical instrument do you play? And that plays a big part in actually getting into the university. I think there's one particular university said that it's not necessarily about your academics, it's about your attitude will get you into this university.
Yeah, and extracurricular activities as well.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, people forget that, don't they? I mean, it's about enhancing your CV, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And
especially
contributing as well, contributing to society. I forgot to say that our little motto in our school is building character, teaching success. So along with the academic achievement, we want to build character in the children, and we've narrowed it down to 5 C's: to be caring, to be confident, contributing, committed, and to be courteous as well. So good manners, which we kind of feel that those things are going away, so to speak. We're becoming very much a grab society where we just want and we take and we don't want to give back. So that is what we will deliberately be doing, even when we set up our curriculum. And it was recently sent to me for comment, and I said, could we please put the 5 C's in there to show that if we're talking about rights and responsibilities, that is about contributing. If we're talking about punctuality, that's being committed. You know, I will come into school, and we're requiring our parents to sign a homeschool agreement, incorporating those 5 C's, that they understand their role is to send their child to school, even if there's a little cough or a cold, you still send your child to school.
That's right.
And that's your responsibility to make sure the homework is done, and we will ensure that we teach the best of our ability.
Your leg drop off, just hop on the other one. And I'd like to bring the involvement. How important is it with the involvement of parents?
Well, you know, that's key. The involvement of parents is key. Without the involvement and the commitment of the parents, you know, the children are not going to get the best they can out of the education. You know, you need to have the parents feeling that they're part of the school. That's one of the things that we're trying to
make parents feel their part.
Yes, the school's not just for the child, it's for the family. You know, the family can come in and do things and interact with the school. We'll embrace all different nationalities and have, you know, culture days and things like that, so everyone gets a chance to learn each other's cultures, you know, and just try and get the parents as involved as possible. I think once the parents are involved and the children see that the parents are involved and how close they are to the school, they'll make them more committed and realise that there's this relationship between their home life and the school. So, you know, it's all part and parcel of the same thing. I could see Karen was really dying to answer that question.
Well, that's my primary role, because I've now been employed by the school as a senior teacher with specific responsibility for parental engagement. And I think it's something that we can just say, all schools say, we engage parents, but what do we actually do to get them over the threshold of the school? I have to say that I'm quite learning focused. The school is for education. Yes, we can have dinners and cultural evenings, that's all well and good, but the school primarily is to educate children, to make sure that they can contribute to society and they can access the secondary curriculum. That is the primary role, and also the building of the character, as I said, and the raising and keeping of their self-esteem. But we see parents as joint partners. without them, really, the children are not going to achieve as well as they could. So we will make sure that firstly we recognise the talents in the parents, and what we've asked is for them to declare what they're talented at and show them that they can contribute. So those 5 C's aren't just for the children and the staff, they're for the parents as well. So, you know, if you want to be a parent governor, for example, be committed at that. If you are, we found we've got someone who I believe is a semi or pro footballer. We have a parent who is a nurse. We have a parent who would like to come in and hear children read. So if you dig deep, everyone has a talent. I really do believe that. So we're saying we value you, and you can come in. So if the topic is on the human body and you're a doctor or you're a nurse, maybe you can come in and share what you know. You can show us an x-ray, or you can tell us how you bandage your hand, or anything along those lines. And we're saying you're welcome, you're welcome. We're also going to have a home school book with communication between the parent and the adult. Not one of those books that are sent home, as you well know, where the parent does all the writing and it's never ever looked at, never looked at. That we want this to be a communication book.
Yeah, that was an issue with my children, because they're doing lots of homework. They're having homework 5 days a week.
Right.
And when I say, what was your mark? They're like, I don't know, the teacher didn't mark it. So I'm like, oh, come on, with a parent, because you want children to do the homework, you want to do the best of their ability, because they'll do 2 or 3 lines and say, that is, you say, no, you're doing 2 pages, and there's an argument, there's frustration, and eventually they'll do it, and after all that, you want to know what mark they got.
Exactly. So it's, again, that's teacher expectation, and it's the teacher saying, I value the work you've done, even if it was 2 lines, I'm going to mark it and I'm going to give it back to you. That's just a given. That has to happen in schools. You need to mark it. How else are you going to assess, you know, the child? But I understand it from the teacher's point of view, because I know I've got friends who are teachers and they're up until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night marking words. Yes, it's
I said to them, why don't you do the homework online? There's something called Fronter. That's, you know, it's quite old now, but they've got some new programs now.
On the BBC, it's bite size, is it?
I know, but Fronter is a school program.
I'm learning it as well, but there's so many different.
It makes sense to just do it online.
You can do it online, yes, but the teacher still has to, in some respects, print it out and even look at it and mark it. And of course assessment can happen with the child as well in class, and you make time for that peer assessment with your classmates assessing with you. But you know, these are what teachers, good teachers, do. So if it doesn't happen, you have to question why it doesn't happen. This is what good teachers do. They mark the work that the children do.
What I also want to bring is like Neil Myers, who wrote the book Gifted in Primary, Failed in Secondary, and you know, there's not one reason why some children, you know, just fail in year 7 onwards. But one of the things he touched on was the lesser involvement of parents, because at primary school you bring children to school, interact with the teacher, collect them from school, and when it comes to secondary school, you know, a lot of parents will go back to work.
That was part of the reason why we decided to do a through school at a primary and secondary and 6th form, so that the parents could be involved from the beginning.